Welcome to the True Mindshifters channel. In this channel, we share stories of overcoming fear, shame, and guilt. In this particular set of stories, we're focused on experiences that Marina's had as she's attempted to create change in her life and how rewards seem to be awaiting her at various stages of the change she creates. If you like the content of this channel, please like, subscribe, and share with others to amplify the goodness and to help others as they are working on achieving more happiness in their lives. We're joining a conversation in progress, so let's go ahead and jump in. We've had a lot going on, and we're not always polished and perfect like we look right now in our dashing outfits.
Matching again.
Matching again, unplanned. But there's, the reality of life happens. It's messy. We have projects we manage, relationships, families, all that. And not everything's going great, but our work and what we hope to help people do is navigate the tricky times by sharing how we ourselves, what insights we ourselves have as we have a difficult time navigating. And then once we see, oh, this technique, this move, this insight is powerful, then that is what we're collecting to then share to potentially accelerate or increase your awareness and accelerate your own capability of creating shifts in your life. So, Marina, I know you haven't had the easiest of weeks, and it sounds like some things have come to a head, and you have some new insights, and I'd love to, hear a little more about how that's gone for you.
Thank you, Eva. Yes, the past couple of weeks were pretty difficult. In many years, the couple of days this week were probably the most difficult in comparison to some other ones, but I can just basically have them numbered as 1 to 3, kind of, right? That's how difficult it was. The difference, though, between those days, as I remember, and now is the amount of awareness I have. And that awareness comes from the perspective of what do I need to learn? What do I need to understand? What do I need to adjust? What am I shifting through right now? And that is going back again to the conversation of our True Mind Shifters change framework. I don't know if people realize that what we are sharing here is our actual lives. And as we're going through it, yes, we're not naming names. We're not naming companies. We're not naming specific places, right? But it's our everyday life. And it's a true life. And I just wanted to make it very clear. So for me specifically, as I have been developed and using this change framework, right? The TMS framework. I live it. I live it every day of my life. And as I'm changing different traits, I'm going through different situations. So the past 2 weeks were an incredible lesson of learning to surrender. I've heard that term a long time ago and I completely rejected it. Then I started understanding more, but I didn't understand how to do it. Then I thought I understood how to do it. And then when I was presented with lessons, I failed them. First attempt at learning. My first attempt at the learning was turning into the second, third, and fourth, and I don't even know how many. And an interesting thing is that this week, it happened. I completely understood what it means to surrender and accept the situation, accept someone's position, adapt to it, and just be and do in the surrender and learn to be my best self. Through that lesson in the last couple of weeks, I learned to surrender completely. I learned to adapt and be the best self. I learned to accept someone else's position without prejudice, fight, rejection. Just accept and be my best self. And the outcomes are just incredible blessings that come in the form not only of an internal peace, but a lot of other really tangible ways. I want to say tangible ways. It's phenomenal feeling.
Well, congratulations. You didn't arrive there quickly or easily, but I'm hearing a few things that sound interesting to me regarding this. So as an outside observer, right? You said you resisted, you said you rejected the idea of surrender initially. And I think that that's a really important call out. So while you're telling a bigger story, which is important, the first part of your story, which I want to just sit in for a minute, is the concept of surrender. You rejected the idea of surrender. How long did you reject the idea of surrender and why?
A really long time. Because, and it's very easy for me to explain, because at first, surrender sounded like failure, surrender sounded like weakness, surrender sounded like a loss, where in fact, surrender is an incredible power, incredible positive force. It is such an amazing, positive, high vibration. Surrender is a high vibration.
There's another word that comes to mind, which is acceptance.
Of course.
It is like this conceptual acceptance of what is happening versus fighting about what we think should be happening. And when you talk about, not everybody's into the energy thing, but the truth is, okay, the truth is everything is energy. Anything that we
Yes.
perceive is energy. And so
Right.
once we start tapping into and being and living in relationship with energy in ourselves, right? That's where something helped you not reject acceptance and surrender, right? So what do you think became that tipping point? Because I think a lot of us live in a negative energy where we're fighting and we're fighting and we're resisting, and it's poisoning our own bodies. It's poisoning our friendships. It's poisoning our relationships. It poisons our work. It does not serve us. So we're living in this state of fight. So what was the tipping point to help you revisit the idea of surrender?
It's not revisiting actually, Eva, it's a lot more. For the
Mm.
past year, more, for the past 2 years, I've started learning more about surrendering, what it means, how it feels, what exactly that is. And I have to tell you, it was actually a very slow journey for me in the sense of transforming my mind and my heart to realize the true value of surrender. And it was coming through with a lot of challenges, a lot of disappointments, where I would try and try and try and do something, and it wouldn't work. So I had to get to the point last year where I had to say to myself, there's nothing I can do. Like, I've tried everything and nothing works. Nothing. No matter what I do, Nothing works, really. So the only thing for me to do left is just to surrender to divine and allow myself to be. Of course, keep trying to do what I'm doing without, like, killing myself over it, without, just do steadily, right? And give up the control and surrender to the divine. So you first surrender to higher level, not to a particular situation, but to a higher level. And you say, that's it. There's nothing I can do. I will try my best. I'm gonna keep going and doing the work without really, tearing my soul out, without putting excessive hours. I'm going to be steady, persistent, without excessive behavior, right? But I'm gonna give up control. I'm gonna let it go, and I'm gonna let it go and surrender and see. Honestly, I said those words. Moreover, when I was getting frustrated, I would have to physically stop myself, look up to the sky, and say, okay, I understand. I will try. I'm gonna try. I'm surrendering. I'm surrendering. So at first, it's a bigger surrender, Eva. And then today, which is probably 8, 9 months later after I ever even tried and worked on it and gave in, I gave in. I let go of that control, because all my life I thought I can control everything and everyone. And guess what? It's bullshit.
You know what's interesting? What's interesting is, and I have a terrible analogy, but maybe it's okay. Um, the analogy is a pimple. Okay. So there's some dirt that gets in your pore, and then your white blood cells come to attack and protect your body. And then more and more come, and then a bump forms, and then it bursts, and then it crusts, and then it heals, right? And all of it's part of a healing process. Okay. All of it is part of a protection process. And so when you're talking about your own like natural defenses or resistance, like this thing that happens that sort of pokes you emotionally and is something your body's like, oh, we're gonna fight this. And then all the fight comes, but then it's like to me, the fight and you accepting is like the bursting of that pimple.
I love it. I love
Okay.
it. I love it. I love
So I
it.
know it's the
It's true.
cheesiest analogy, but I just
Who
get these visuals
cares?
sometimes and I look for parallels in where else can I see the same truth happening in nature, in life, on my body, at a tree, with a bug, I don't know. And this just reminds me of like, maybe it is a natural process for us.
It
And
is.
it's okay to resist, because you are, in some sense, it's natural for your body to send the protection. But then at some point, part of the protection process, part of the healing process is exploding and crusting, right? And it's when you probably have like all the little soldiers in your body, the white blood cells have fought off the infection, and it's not going to permeate you. So you can stop now, and I think they just die, and then it's absorbed back into your body. And it's just fascinating. Like, you really think about the process, right? Because part of what we're trying to do is teach people a process, that you're going through a process in your life to navigate difficult times, to find more happiness. That is a process. So that's why we're bothering to break it down, to share the story, to give examples, to describe in detail, to have an analogy, to break down the step, and to not jump past a step, Because if you're jumping past or skipping a step, the likelihood of you succeeding in achieving the full process and greater happiness dwindles. So anyway, I hope this is interesting, gives a good visual, and that you become self-aware with when I'm facing something that feels like an attack on me and I'm getting defensive. Am I rejecting the idea of just in that moment surrendering? Or do I need to have more fight come to me naturally? Do I need to keep fighting and fighting and failing and fighting and failing and fighting and failing in order for this to get to a better place?
No,
It took
no,
me decades to stop fighting.
exactly. Deal.
And it's
Ditto,
my
my
own,
dear.
yeah, it's my own internal. Some things a little easier to accept, some things a little easier to not fight. But there are things that we, for whatever reason, we want to fight each other over stupid stuff sometimes. It's really kind of ridiculous versus just accepting, surrendering.
Brene Brown books helped tremendously. By the way, you asked
Yeah.
me. Yes, I think it's Dare to Lead, where she was talking about people not realizing that every single person is trying to do their best. So when you're talking about acceptance, this is what it is. It's acceptance. So when you are able to, so that kind of, to me, that is interchangeable. And you actually, you pointed out as well, because to you it comes naturally, Eva, actually. When you surrender to the situation that you're in, and that is caused by another person, and I'm not talking about somebody trying to kill you. That's definitely not an example. It's an example of maybe a challenging situation at work. It's an example of a difficult conversation at home or whatever, right? Not anything um physical, right? So we're not promoting violence. We're not promoting that if you're being chased, you stop and you allow whatever. No, that's not what we're talking about. But if you are in a difficult conversation or in an altercation or whatever, and you stop and you say to yourself, okay, hold on a second, let me just surrender to the fact that this person is really persistent with what they're saying. I'll just let it be, right? Because in their mind, they're trying their very best. So that phrase in Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead, I think, when she's saying, did you realize that everyone is trying to do the best they can? It was like a lightning strike to my brain. Because before that, I didn't think so. And it also comes, unfortunately, with being criticized and scrutinized a lot as a child. And not having good example of the support of a family that promotes positive thinking of other people, unfortunately. But if we do understand that people are trying to do their best they can, and even if they're wrong, if they're in their stress or rage or upset or whatever, it's not a reflection of you on them.
What you're saying right now is the key for why I stopped fighting. You think of fear of rejection. We don't want people to think badly of us.
Yes.
We don't want to be left out. Specifically for fear of rejection, which is our focus this month,
Mhm.
is when someone rejects us, we have this fear of it, because what it means is we're putting our sense of importance or value in their hands.
Validation.
Validation,
Validation.
the value, importance, all sorts of things, we put it in other people's hands. That's why we value, being accepted, belonging, right? So being afraid of not belonging or being afraid of being rejected, it hurts us on multiple levels. We want to feel relevant. But then when you actually dig into and when you face rejection, and then you start to accept other people's rejection of you, when you start to do that and you radically accept slash surrender other people, other people's choices, other people's perspectives, to choose to not value you. That is some mental gymnastics right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you have stories, and we'll share a little bit more about this, but what you are sharing about surrender ties back to fear of rejection. Why not accept that someone doesn't like you or doesn't think something of you that's positive? That's their perspective.
A lot more. You
Yes.
know why?
Yes.
When you have a good sense of who you are, what you can do, basically when you love yourself. Let's go back to that. When you love yourself and you accept yourself, someone else's validation becomes irrelevant. Someone else's acceptance becomes irrelevant because we're all different people. So if you love yourself, if your self-esteem is healthy, where you know you're doing your very best, and it might not align with other people's expectations or
Mm-hmm.
visions, but
Mm-hmm.
you know you're doing your very best, then you don't need to be validated by anyone.
This is a big conversation, so we're splitting it up over a few different weeks. We hope that the reflection of our own experiences are helping you think about what's happening in your life. What are you attempting to overcome? Are you making progress on the things you're trying to change? And how does acceptance and surrender play into what you're trying to create in your life? That's all for now. We hope you do tune in to the other parts of this story and set of stories from myself and Marina. And in the meantime, we send you support, empowerment, and love.